Picture a marae on fire. Real flames, timbers cracking, smoke thick enough to choke on. The fire brigade pulls up, walking straight past, and sets up a high-pressure hose blasting a puddle across the street. Why? Because a politician pointed at the puddle, declaring it the real emergency. Misdirecting protective resources based on political convenience leaves the water wasted and the people inside the building to burn. In July 2026, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio hosted a global symposium on political violence in Washington, D.C. New Zealand sent Deputy Head of Mission Daniel Millsop to attend this event, which was explicitly built around combating a supposed global surge in far-left terrorism. This diplomat represents a country where a white supremacist murdered 51 people at 2 Christchurch mosques just 7 years prior. By taking a seat at that table, Aotearoa's diplomatic establishment helps legitimize a coalition that insists left-wing activism is the real global danger, while the movement that actually bled our communities goes unmentioned. The premise for Rubio's summit grew from a domestic political strategy, the Trump administration's push for a unifying message ahead of the U.S. midterms. The mechanism was a presidential memorandum known as NSPM 7. This executive order directed federal task forces to investigate political networks and formally branded Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, despite U.S. law having no legal category for domestic terror groups. This branding creates the necessary cover to place protesters and political dissidents under mass surveillance, using counterterrorism as a justification for monitoring political opponents. This crusade functions as a calculated political tool, manufactured for a specific election cycle, and then exported to allies as a global security standard. Auditing Rubio's blind spot claim against U.S. extremist fatality data from the Center for Strategic and International Studies reveals a massive disparity. Over 10 years, left-wing violence caused 13 deaths, while right-wing violence killed 112, making right-wing extremism roughly 8.6 times more lethal. The U.S. administration is demanding global mobilization against a statistical anomaly while minimizing the primary driver of domestic bloodshed in their own country. This creates a disconnect in Wellington. Our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade validates Washington's data, rather than relying on the findings of our own intelligence services. New Zealand's own Security Intelligence Service published a threat environment report in 2025 that explicitly concluded no single ideology stands out as a greater threat, noting a roughly even spread of extremist ideologies here. Meanwhile, white nationalist groups like Action Zealandia are still actively organizing on our soil, maintaining verified contact with Nordic terror outfits tied to bombings and assassination plots. Every hour our diplomats spend validating a foreign political fiction is an hour they aren't interrogating documented terror networks operating right now in our own backyard. Analyzing these fatalities through Tikanga Māori moves the conversation beyond a simple numbers game and into the realm of Māori, the life force and collective health of our whānau. When the state inflates a smaller threat to systematically ignore a larger one, it depletes the community's Māori. It drains protective resources away from marginalized whānau, leaving them exposed to the very killers our spies are ignoring. We see this same strategy, labeling a manufactured threat to justify stripping away real protections in our own classrooms. The government's recent curriculum rewrite claimed to be adding knowledge while simultaneously erasing Te Tiritio Waitangi, removing a foundation of safety under the guise of an update. Whether it's happening at a Washington summit or in a local school, institutional erasure forces the most vulnerable communities to absorb the physical and cultural cost of political convenience. 51 whānau died in Christchurch because of a documented transnational far-right ideology. True mana motuhake, true self-determination, requires us to force our ministers and diplomats to justify their threat priorities against their own agency's data, in public, every single time. Accountability means rejecting imported political panic and supporting the independent truth-tellers who defend the memory of the real victims.